Opening doors of their persons. Sige, magtapatan na tayo. Napansin mo na ba kung paano may ilang tao na mahilig sumubok ng pasensya mo? Yung bigla na lang sisingit sa usapan, magpaparinig, o uunahin ang sarili habang minamaliit ang oras at damdamin. At parang inaasahan pang umiti ka na lang at palampasin yon. Hindi na ngayon. Kung sawa ka na sa mga taong walang galang sa'yo, para sa'yo ito. Ngayon pag-uusapan natin ang ilang prangkam at baka medyo nakakagulat na paraan para harapin ang kawalang galang nang hindi nawawala sa ayos at hindi kailangang isuko ang dignidad mo. Kaya humanda ka. Pagkatapos nito, alam mo na kung paano itatakda ang hangganan at ipakita sa kanila kung hanggang saan lang sila. Tara, simulan na natin. Isa, ang walang imig na titig. Baka iniisip mo, titingin lang. Yun na yun. Oo, totoo yan. Maniwala ka sa akin. Kapag may taong bastos o lantaran kang ginagawang walang galang, walang mas epektibo kundi ang isang mahaba, kalmado, at walang reaksyong titig. Bakit ito gumagana? Kasi ang mga taong walang respeto, karaniwang naghahanap ng reaksyon. Gusto nilang mapikon ka, magmukha kang defensive, o masira ang loob mo. Gusto nilang hilahin ka sa drama nila para maramdaman mong maliit ka. Pero kapag tumitig ka lang, walang salita, walang galaw, baligtad bigla ang sitwasyon. Ikaw na ang may hawak ng kontrol. Alam ko parang passive-aggressive, pero wag mo agad husgahan. May kakaibang dating, yung hindi mo sila binibigyan ng reaksyong inaasahan nila. Sa isang tahimik pero matatag na titig, parang sinasabi mo, hindi ako makikisayaw sa drama mo. Isang simpleng paraan para kunin muli ang respeto at kapangyarihan mo, kahit wala kang sabihin. May pagkakataon na gumana ito ng sobrang husay. Nasa isang meeting ako noon, maraming tao. May isang lalaking panay ang pagsingit sa akin. Wala pang 3 salita, sasalubungan na ng sarili niyang opinyon. Alam mo yung tipo, maingay, mayabang, feeling siya lang ang matalino sa kwarto. Una, sinubukan kong maging magalang. Nagpasintabi, sumingit pabalik. Pero wala, tuloy-tuloy pa rin siya. Hanggang sa napuno na ako. Umupo ako ng maayos, tumiklop ng braso, at tumitig sa kanya. Walang keyboard, walang reaksyon. 5 segundo lang, pero ramdam ang tensyon. Tapos, ayun na, napatingin ang iba, napansin ng lahat. Bigla siyang nataranta, nauutal. Hindi na siya makatingin sa akin. At simula noon, hindi na niya ako inistorbo. Parang doon niya lang naisip, ay, hindi pala ako pwedeng umastang basta-basta sa tao. Minsan, hindi mo na kailangang magsalita para ipakita kung sino ka. Pero higit pa ito sa simpleng power. Ang tahimik na titig ay paalala para sa kanila at para sa sarili mo na hindi mo kailangang sumabay sa gulo ng iba. Hindi mo kailangang magpaliwanag sa taong hindi naman marunong rumispeto. Hindi mo kailangang bumaba sa antas nila para ipagtanggol ang sarili mo. Lalo na sa kultura natin, kung saan madalas tayong iwas sa gulo, minsan natututo tayong tiisin na lang ang kawalang galang para lang di na lumaki ang issue. Pero ang totoo, ang tahimik na titig ay hindi kabastusan. Ito'y pagkontrol sa sarili. Isang uri ng katahimikan na may lakas. At higit sa lahat, ito'y paraan ng pagpapakita ng accountability. Yung mga taong sanay mambastos, kadalasan hindi na nila namamalayan. Walang sumisita, walang humaharap. Pero kapag tumitig ka lang, para mo na ring sinabing, tingnan mo sarili mo. At kadalasan, hindi nila gusto ang makikita nila. Kaya ito epektibo. Ang hindi alam ng iba, sa bawat titig na yon, ikaw rin mismo ang lumalaban. sa totoo lang, nakakapagod, nakakapanghina, hanggang natutunan kong tumahimik na lang at tumitig. Nakakagulat, pero yun ang naging panlaban ko. Tahimik, pero malakas. Para siyang deklarasyon, hindi mo ako kayang babuyin ng basta-basta. Kaya kung may nananadyang bastusin ka, subukan mo. Titigan mo lang. Hayaan mong maramdaman nila ang bigat ng katahimikan mo. Magugulat ka kung gaano sila mauurong at kung gaano ka lalakas. Ang tahimik na titig ay parang sinasabi, mahal ko ang sarili at hindi ako sasama sa gulo mo. At sa mundong puno ng ingay, minsan ang katahimikan ang pinakamatinding sagot ay dalawa. Gamitin ang katahimikan bilang sagot. May isa akong sikreto na madalas hindi napapansin pero sobrang lakas ng dating katahimikan. Kapag may naniraw ng bastos sa'yo, minsan ang pinakamakapangyarihang sagot ay ang walang sagot. Alam ko iniisip mo, pero di ba parang hinayaan mo lang sila? Parang pinabayaan mo. Pero ito ang totoo. Ang katahimikan ay hindi kahinaan. Isa itong matatag na desisyon. At sa maraming pagkakataon, ito ang pinakamalakas at pinakamatapang mong pwedeng sabihin nang hindi ka nagsasalita. Kapag may nagtapon ng negatibong salita sa iyo, layunin nilang hilahin ka sa gulo nila. Gusto nilang mapikon ka, magpaliwanag o makipagsagutan. Pero kapag hindi ka pumatol, kapag hinayaan mong lumutang ang mga salita nila sa ere ng walang tugon, mapipilitan silang harapin ang sarili nilang asal. At yung katahimikang yun, nakabibingi, bakit ito epektibo? Kasi ang mga taong bastos, sanay silang may sagot, may komento, may laban. Gusto nila ng drama. Pero kapag pinili mong manahimik, parang sinasabi mo, hindi mo ako kayang kontrolin. Hindi ako susuko sa enerhiyang dala mo. Hindi ka nakikipagtalo, pero malinaw ang mensahe. Hindi ako para sa laro mo. Naalala ko may isang tao dati na mahilig magparinig. Yung tipong kunwari biro, pero may turok ng insulto. Isang araw nagbitaw siya ng komentong wala sa lugar tungkol sa trabaho. Dati siguro sasagutin ko yon o magpapaliwanag pa. Pero sa pagkakataong yon, tumitig lang ako. Tinaasan ko lang siya ng kilay at tumahimik. Pinabayaan ko yung sinabi niya na parang wala lang. Wala akong sinabi. At ayun, nataranta siya. Napatingin sa akin, napayo ko. Tapos bigla na lang lumihis ang usapan. Yun na rin ang huling beses na sinubukan niyang gawin yon sa akin. Doon niya siguro na-realize, wala pala akong makukuhang reaksyon sa kanya. At yan ang ganda ng katahimikan. Tinatanggal mo ang atensyon na hinahanap ng kawalang galang. Mas malalim pa diyan, ang katahimikan ay Kaya ito ang hamon ko sa iyo. Sa susunod na may mambastos, huminga ka ng malalim. Tumitig ka lang. Huwag kang magsalita. Hayaan mong ang katahimikan mo ang magsalita para sa iyo. Baka magulat ka. Hindi lang sila ang maiilang, kundi ikaw rin mismo ang makakaramdam ng ginhawa at lakas. Gamitin ang katahimikan bilang sagot. Dahil minsan ang pinakamalakas mong pwedeng sabihin ay ang hindi pagsasalita. 3, tigilan mo na ang pagpapaliwanag ng mga desisyon mo. Tapat tayo sa isa't isa. Ito ang masakit pero totoo. Tigilan mo na ang pagpapaliwanag ng mga desisyon mo sa buhay. Ilang beses ka nang nagdesisyon para sa sarili mo. Tapos biglang may pagtatanong, bakit yan ang pinili mo? Bakit di ka sumama? Bakit mo tinanggap yang trabaho? Para bang may karapatan silang malaman ang dahilan ng bawat galaw mo? Pero ang totoo, wala silang karapatan. Ang mga desisyon mo ay desisyon mo. Hindi mo kailangang magpaliwanag kung paano mo pinipili mabuhay. Madalas, yung mga nagtatanong, hindi naman talaga gustong umunawa. Gusto lang kumontra, punahin, o ipadama sa'yo na mali ka para mas gumaan ang pakiramdam nila sa sarili nila. Pero sa oras na tumigil ka sa kakapaliwanag, binabawi mo ang kapangyarihan mo. Ipinapakita mong hindi bukas sa opinyon ng iba ang personal mong landas. Minsan ang totoo, ang pagdududa nila ay dahil nahihirapan silang tanggapin ang tapang mo. Baka ginagawa mo ang bagay na sila mismo ay takot subukan. Baka yung pagiging malaya mo ay nagbibigay sa kanila ng discomfort. Pero tandaan mo, problema nila yan, hindi sa'yo. Naalala ko nung iniwan ko ang isang stable na trabaho para sundan ang bagay na tunay kong gusto. Parang ang daming nag-akala na nasisiraan ako ng bait. Bakit mo iiwan nung sigurado na? Tanong nila. Noong una, paliwanag ako ng paliwanag. Sinasabi ko na may plano ako na hinahanap ko ang fulfillment. Pero kahit gaano ako kahaba magsalita, parang hindi sapat. Mas lalo lang silang nagtatanong. Hanggang sa isang araw, sinagot ko lang ng, kasi gusto ko. Walang mahabang kwento, walang depensa, at ang sarap sa pakiramdam. Tahimik sila. At sa katahimikang yun, mas maraming sinabi kaysa sa kahit anong paliwanag. Sa paglaon, tumigil na rin sila sa kakatanong. Yan ang ganda ng pagtigil sa pagpapaliwanag. Nakakagaan. Yung enerhiyang dati mong ginagamit para ipagtanggol ang sarili mo, nagagamit mo na ngayon sa pagbuo ng buhay na gusto mo. Kapag hindi ka na naghahanap ng approval ng iba, mas nagiging buo ka sa sarili mong paninindigan. Ang mga taong kumpiyansa sa sarili, hindi mahilig magpaliwanag. Kasi alam nilang ang tanging pahintulot na mahalaga ay galing sa sarili nila. Dati, para akong may PowerPoint sa bawat desisyon ko. Lahat ipapaliwanag, lahat idedepensa. Pero napansin ko ang ending. Ako rin ang napapaisip kung tama nga ba ako. Ngayon, kapag may nagtanong, simple lang ang sagot ko. At kapag kinulit pa, ngingitian ko lang at magpapatuloy sa araw ko. Mas gumaan ang buhay ko nang piliin kong magtiwala sa sarili ko kaysa magpaliwanag sa iba. Kaya ito ang hamon ko sa iyo. Sa susunod na may kumuwestiyon sa mga pinili mo, huwag mong ipaliwanag. Sabihin mo lang, kasi gusto ko. At hayaan mong yun lang ang sapat. Mas magiging matatag ka, mas panatag, at mas may kontrol sa sarili mong kwento. Dahil ang mga desisyon mo ay may halaga. Dahil ikaw mismo ang pumili niyon. 4, matutong umiwas. Kapag kailangan maging totoo tayo, minsan ang pinakamabuting gawin para sa mga taong hindi marunong rumespeto ay umiwas. Oo, pwede isang paraan ng pagpili kung saan mo ilalaan ang enerhiya mo. Proteksyon ito para sa sarili mong kapayapaan. Isipin mo ang buhay mo bilang isang eksklusibong club. Hindi lahat pwedeng bigyan ng VIP pass. Kung ang isang tao puro puna, inggit, o negatibidad lang ang dala, bakit mo pa siya palalapitin? Ang distansya ay nagbibigay linaw. Kapag may espasyo ka, mas nakikita mo kung gaano kabigat ang epekto ng presensya ng isang tao. Dati, may kaibigan ako na parang laging may banat tungkol sa trabaho ko, sa mga relasyon ko, pati sa music na gusto ko. Akala ko nung una, ako lang ang nagiging sensitive. Pero habang tumatagal, parang laging may kasunod na biro na mas masakit pa sa totoo. Kaya tahimik akong lumayo. Walang away, walang drama. Simple lang. Hindi ko na siya gaanong kinakausap, hindi na kami madalas magkita. At habang lumalayo ako, mas gumagaan ang pakiramdam ko. Doon ko napagtanto. Karapat dapat ako sa mas maayos. May mga tao na mag-iisip ng pagdistansya ay pagiging makasarili, lalo na kung pamilya o matagal ng kaibigan. Pero tandaan mo, ang pagprotekta sa sarili mong kapayapaan ay hindi pagiging makasarili. Ito ay kailangan. Hindi ka narito para maging shock absorber ng damdamin ng iba o para laging magpaliwanag sa mga taong hindi naman nakikinig. Minsan, ang pinakamatinong tugon ay ang tumalikod ng tahimik. Ang pagdistansya ay uri ng pagrespeto sa sarili. Para mong sinasabi, mahalaga ako. At ang maganda dito, habang binibigyan mo ng espasyo ang sarili mo, mas binubuksan mo ang pinto para sa mga taong tunay na sumusuporta, nakikinig at nagtataas sa iyo. Dati may guilt akong nararamdaman sa paglayo. Baka isipin ng iba na wala akong pakialam o na sobrang balat sibuyas ako. Pero natutunan kong hindi ito tungkol sa paglayo sa tao, kundi sa paglapit sa sarili kong paglago. Kaya ito ang hamon ko sa iyo. Isipin mong mabuti. Sino sa buhay mo ang palaging nagpaparamdam ng bigat, kulang sa respeto, o hindi ka talaga nakikita? Tanungin mo ang sarili mo. Kailangan ba talaga nila ng ganito kalaking access sa buhay mo? 5. Iangat mo ang iyong ulo. Sige, pag-usapan natin yung isang timeless na payo na laging swak sa kahit anong panahon. Yung simpleng pero makapangyarihang gawin. Iangat mo ang iyong ulo. Alam ko parang cliche ito minsan. Pero sa totoo lang, napakahalaga nito lalo na kapag may mga taong walang respeto sa iyo. Ganito yan. Kapag may taong bastos o walang respeto, gusto nilang pakiramdam mo'y maliit ka. Gusto nilang magduda ka sa sarili mo, panuhurin ang mga mata mo, at tila maglaho ka sa sarili mo. Pero kapag matapang kang tumayo at iangat ang iyong ulo, nagpapahiwatig ka ng hindi kailangan ng salita. Alam ko kung sino ako at wala kang magagawa para pababain ako. Ang lakas nito, nakakainis ang kumpiyansa, lalo na sa mga taong sanay magmaliit ng iba. Bakit? Kasi naniniwala sila na may kontrol sila sa iyo sa pamamagitan ng mga sinasabi o ginagawa nila. Pero kapag hindi mo pinapayagan na makaapekto ang kawalang galang nila sa iyo, yarihan na sirain ka. Hindi ka basta-basta matitinag. Yung mga taong gusto lang mang-api ay hindi nila alam paano harapin yan. Naguguluhan sila, parang nawawala sila sa balance, at nagdududa sila sa sarili nilang kapangyarihan, hindi sa'yo. Naalala ko nung minsan, may isang tao na palaging may maliliit na insulto sa tuwing magkikita kami. Alam mo yung tipo na laging may ngiti na parang may tinatago at mga biro na mas masakit pa kaysa sa sinabi. Dati, sinisikap kong huwag pansinin pero totoo, naapektuhan talaga ako. Naging ayaw ko na nga sumama sa kanila kasi feeling ko, kailangan kong ipagtanggol ang sarili ko palagi. Pero isang araw, nagdesisyon akong tapusin yan. Dumating ako, nakataas ang mga balikat, mataas ang ulo. Tuwing may sasabihin silang hindi maganda, titigan ko lang sila, ngumiti, at tuloy lang sa ginagawa ko na parang wala lang. At alam mo, unti-unti silang huminto. Parang na-realize nila na hindi na ako naapektuhan. Nalampas na ako sa ganoong mga drama. Nawala yung lakas nila. May kakaibang karisma ang taong matapang mag-angat ng ulo. Para siyang invisible shield na nagsasabing, hindi ako basta-basta matitinag. Ngayon ito ang medyo mahirap. Yung mga taong walang respeto madalas ay naiinis sa taong kumpiyansa. Nakakalito ito sa kanila kasi gusto nilang isipin na nasa itaas sila, na may hawak silang laban sa'yo. Pero kapag matapang kang lumakad at nagpakita ng kumpiyansa, sinisira mo yung kwento nila. Para sa kanila parang insulto yan. Hindi laging alam ng lipunan kung paano harapin ang mga taong walang takot sa sarili nila. Lalo na kapag hindi nila hinahayaan ang negatibidad ng iba na maimpluwensyahan sila. At syempre, minsan, kaya ito nagiging dahilan para maging target ka. Pero ito ang mahalaga. Ang pag-angat ng ulo ay tungkol sa iyo, hindi sa kanila. Tungkol to sa pamumuhay na alam mo ang iyong halaga, na wala kang kailangang patunayan. At minsan, para itong isang revolusyonaryong paraan ng pagpapakita ng respeto sa sarili. Kapag matapang kang mag-angat ng ulo, nagsasabi ka na mahalaga ka, karapat-dapat sa respeto, at sapat ka na. At yung pinakamalalim na aral dito, hindi mo kailangang hingiin sa iba ang halaga mo. Kailangan mo itong ipagmalaki sa sarili mo. Kahit anong sabihin o isipin ng iba, lumalakad ka sa buhay na parang dala mo na ang lahat ng kailangan mo dahil dala mo nga. Ang pag-angat ng ulo ay paalala na ikaw ang bida sa kwento mo.
There comes a time when silence becomes the loudest scream, when your calmness shakes the very ground that tried to break you. In a world where everyone is reacting, there is unmatched power in restraint. Because not everything deserves your energy, especially pain. Let's talk about why you should never react when someone hurts you. When someone hurts you, the immediate urge is to react, maybe with anger, maybe with tears, maybe with words that cut back just as deep. But in that moment, when you react, you give away something far more valuable than your pride. You give away your power. Emotional control is not just about looking calm on the outside. It's about mastering the storm inside. It's about choosing not to allow someone else's actions to dictate your state of mind. Because the moment you let someone push you to react, they gain control over you. They've put you into their emotional arena, and now you're playing their game. That's not strength. That's a surrender. Power lies in restraint. Power lies in being able to feel everything. Hurt, anger, betrayal, and still choose not to act out of it. It's knowing that your peace of mind is more important than proving a point. When you don't react, you're not suppressing your emotions, you're mastering them. You're telling yourself, I decide how I feel. I decide how I respond, not them. That is power, true power. It's easy to explode. It's easy to shout back, but those who do are often ruled by their emotions. And emotions, as intense as they are temporary. What's not temporary is the damage done in a moment of weakness. Words once spoken can't be taken back. Actions made in anger leave scars that don't heal easily. And most of all, when you react without thinking, you often end up regretting it later. But when you pause, when you choose silence, when you let the wave of emotion pass with without drowning in it. That's when you know you've grown. People who master their emotions don't do so because they're cold. They do it because they've been through enough to know that reacting doesn't always fix things. It often makes them worse. So they stay quiet. They observe, they process, and they respond, if needed, when the time is right, and from a place of clarity, not chaos. In the end, emotional control isn't about pretending you don't feel pain. It's about recognizing that pain doesn't deserve to control you, that no one, no matter how deep the wound, gets to determine how you live the next minute, the next day, or the rest of your life. When you can feel deeply and still stand calmly, you've unlocked a level of power most people never reach. That's not just strength, that's self-respect. There's a certain type of person who doesn't just want to hurt you, they want to see that they've hurt you. It's not enough for them to cause pain, they crave the reaction. The look on your face, the tremble in your voice, the way your energy shifts when their words land. That reaction, that's their reward. Because the more visibly you react, the more control you hand over. You're feeding the very behavior that's trying to break you. Some people hurt others not out of anger, but out of a desperate need to feel powerful. They poke, they provoke, and then they watch. They wait to see if their words hit hard enough to shake you, and the moment you explode, cry, argue, or plead, they win. Not because they are right, but because they succeeded in dragging you into their world of emotional instability. Your reaction becomes their fuel. But what happens when you don't give them that reaction? What happens when you stay calm, centered, and unbothered? Something powerful shifts. Suddenly, they're disarmed. They expected fire, and you gave them stillness. They wanted chaos, and you gave them peace. That silence, it unsettles them more than any scream ever could. Refusing to react doesn't mean you didn't feel the sting. It means you chose not to let it define you. It means you are aware enough to know that most people who try to hurt you are dealing with pain themselves. They're projecting, and your emotional outburst only validates their need for control. But when you withhold that emotional energy, you break the cycle. You refuse to participate in their game, and slowly they realize they have no power over you. It's not easy to stay silent when you hurt. It takes strength, discipline, and deep self-awareness. But every time you do, you take back a piece of your power. You show yourself and the world that your emotions aren't for show. They aren't puppets on strings pulled by others. They belong to you. And here's the truth. People don't forget the ones they couldn't shake. The ones who didn't flinch. The ones who stayed silent, leveled up, and kept shining. Because nothing confuses a person who wants to hurt you more than your peace. Your calmness is your weapon. Your lack of reaction is your armor. And eventually, the people who once sought to disturb your soul will realize they never had access to it in the first place. Reacting in the heat of the moment feels natural. It's an impulse, almost automatic. Someone says something cruel and you want to snap back. Someone disrespects you and you feel the urge to put them in their place. But here's the truth. Reacting immediately is rarely wise. It's emotional, it's unfiltered, and often it leads to regret. That's because when you react instantly, you are not responding with your mind. You're responding with your wound. You're letting pain response is thoughtful. It's measured. It's born from clarity, not chaos. It's what happens when you allow the first wave of emotion to pass without letting it drag you under. When you delay your reaction, you create space for wisdom. You allow yourself to think beyond the moment, beyond the insight, beyond the pain. That space, those few seconds or minutes or even hours of pause can change everything, because within that space you reclaim control. You're no longer a puppet pulled by strings of anger or hurt. You're grounded, you're aware, and you can choose what energy you want to give out. Sometimes that choice is silence. Sometimes it's walking away. Other times it might be addressing the situation but on your terms. When your emotions have settled and your mind is clear, people often believe that reacting fast shows strength, that it means you're not to be messed with. But in truth, it often shows the opposite. It shows someone else was able to trigger you quickly, easily, and completely. There's nothing strong about being emotionally hijacked. What's strong is restraint. What's powerful is patience. What's impressive is the ability to sit with your feelings, process them, and then decide your next move with intention. Remember, time is your ally. What feels urgent in the moment often feels insignificant with a little distance. Delaying your response doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're in control. And in a world full of noise, chaos, and conflict, that control is priceless. Let the delay be your filter. Let it be the difference between reacting out of pain and responding out of wisdom. Because your response, when it comes from strength, will always be more powerful than any impulse ever could be. Pain is one of life's greatest teachers. It doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to shape you. And how you handle pain says far more about you than the pain itself. Anyone can be kind when things are easy. Anyone can smile when life feels good. But your true character, your true maturity, is revealed in the moments when you feel hurt, betrayed, or disrespected. In those moments, you are given a choice: to react or to rise. When someone hurts you, the pain is real. It stings, it lingers, it shakes your peace. But the pain is not what defines you. Your response to it does. If you lash out, if you crumble, if you let the hurt twist your behavior, then you're allowing that pain to own you. But if you stand tall, breathe through it, and move with dignity, then you're transforming pain into growth. That's maturity. It's the ability to feel deeply and still choose your actions consciously. Life will test you again and again through people. Some will misunderstand you, some will disrespect you, some will even go out of their way to hurt you. But those are not setbacks, they are mirrors. They reflect where you are in your personal evolution. If you react the same way you always have, anger, revenge, emotional outbursts, then the lesson remains unlearned. But when you start responding with calm, clarity, and silence, you know you've stepped into a new version of yourself. Maturity isn't about pretending pain doesn't affect you. It's about knowing that you don't have to act on every emotion that visits you. It's about creating space between the pain and your reaction. It's understanding that just because someone tries to bring chaos into your life doesn't mean you have to accept the invitation. Not every insult needs a comeback. Not every wound needs to be announced. Sometimes the strongest response is your stillness. Your ability to carry yourself with grace master that level of control, you begin to live from a place of inner strength. You're no longer thrown off course by every emotional storm. You trust yourself more. You don't seek validation. And most importantly, you stop allowing pain to shape your identity. In the end, maturity is not measured by how you treat others when you're happy, but by how you treat yourself and others when you're hurting. Let pain be your teacher, not your master. Grow through it. Rise above it. And never let it turn you into something you are not. Every reaction you give away costs you something. It costs you energy, emotional, mental, even physical. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your entire day, your entire peace, reacting to people and situations that don't even deserve your attention. Not everyone who hurts you is worth your energy. Not every situation requires your emotional investment. One of the most powerful things you can learn in life is how to protect your energy like it's your most valuable currency. Because it is. Think about how drained you feel after an argument, how heavy your body becomes after replaying a painful conversation over and over in your head. That's not just emotional discomfort, it's your energy being depleted. And most of the time, it's not even the situation that causes the exhaustion, it's your reaction to it. The overthinking, the emotional replays, the internal battles. All of it consumes you. But when you learn to pause, to not react immediately, to hold your peace, you conserve your energy for what truly matters. Your growth, your goals, your well-being. People often throw negativity your way, not because of who you are, but because of who they are. They're chaotic inside, and they want to spread that chaos. When you react, you invite that chaos into your space. You open the door and say, come in, take a seat. But when you don't react, you protect your energy field. You maintain your center. And in doing so, you keep your focus sharp and your emotions intact. This isn't about being emotionless. It's about being selective. It's about knowing that your emotional bandwidth is limited and you can't afford to spend it on things that don't bring value to your life. Every time you choose not to react to negativity, you're not just walking away. You're preserving your emotional clarity. You're saying, my peace is worth more than this moment of chaos. And the more you practice this, the more powerful you become. You begin to see that not everything deserves a response. Not every battle is worth fighting. You become emotionally lean, light, focused, intentional. You stop being a reactor and start being a creator of your mindset, your mood, and your future. In the end, your energy is sacred. Don't spend it proving points to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Don't waste it on noise. Conserve it, protect it, and channel it into your purpose. Because nothing is more expensive than letting someone else's actions drain the power you need to build the life you deserve. The most powerful response to pain isn't revenge. It isn't anger. It's growth. When someone hurts you, they expect you to fall apart. They expect you to react emotionally, to lose your focus, to prove that their words or actions had power over you. But when you take that pain and turn it into fuel for your progress, you shift the balance. You remove them from the center of the story and place yourself there instead. They become irrelevant not because the pain didn't matter, but because your healing, your evolution matters more. People who try to bring you down are often watching closely. They want to see if they still have access to your emotions. They look for signs that they've affected you. But when you choose to say nothing, to do nothing, and instead silently work on yourself, you take away their control. You redirect all that energy inward. And while they're busy trying to get your attention, you're busy building your future. Let your results speak. Let your peace be your power. Let your glow up be the loudest response. Because nothing unsettles someone more than watching the person they try to break become better, stronger, and more focused. That's the kind of response they can't argue with. You don't need to explain your silence. You don't need to justify your growth. Just keep moving quietly, consistently, and confidently. There is something incredibly powerful about choosing not to match someone's low energy, about refusing to shrink yourself down to their level just to prove a point. Every time you level up in silence, you rewrite the narrative. You show yourself and the world that you don't need revenge. You don't need validation. You just need discipline and direction. It's not about pretending the pain didn't exist. It's about using that pain as a stepping stone. It's about telling yourself, yes, I was hurt, but look what I did with it. That's how you reclaim your story. That's how you shift from being a victim of someone's actions to being the author of your transformation. So the next time someone hurts you, don't react. Don't post about it. Don't argue back. Go quiet. Go inward. Focus on your goals. Focus on becoming unshakable. Let your success speak for itself. Because at the end of the day, nothing silences noise like progress. And no reaction is louder than becoming everything they said you couldn't be.
Have you ever noticed that the more you chase a man, the less he values you? There exists a hidden knowledge, preserved through generations in the deepest layers of the male mind, known to only a few women. This secret holds the power to ignite intense passion in a man, even in one who previously showed complete indifference. What I will reveal today will completely transform your approach to relationships with men. We're not talking about superficial conquest strategies or manipulation. We're addressing something far more significant, something that touches the essence of masculinity at its most vulnerable point. Carl Jung, the renowned psychotherapist, identified in his research on the collective unconscious that every man carries within him a primordial wound. When this wound is properly stimulated, it awakens in him an almost compulsive need to prove his worth, and that is precisely what I will share today. Imagine sparking in the man you desire an attraction so strong that he cannot imagine his life without you. Picture him thinking about you constantly, sending you messages, seeking your attention, your time, your company. What I'm about to share is not a mere technique, but an ancestral knowledge about the essence of masculinity, about what truly motivates a man beyond logic. It's about
comes a time when silence becomes the loudest.
It's about accessing the deepest dimensions of the male ego, not to hurt it cruelly, but to awaken in him the protector, the warrior, the devoted lover who yearns to prove his worth to the woman he loves. Many women waste years trying to win or win back a man using ineffective approaches. They give everything, offer all their love, all their devotion, and receive crumbs in return. And do you know why? Because they completely ignore how the male mind truly works. Contemporary neuroscience has finally confirmed what Jung knew decades ago. The male brain is wired to value what it needs to conquer, what represents a challenge to its identity as a man. When you truly understand this, you hold the power to completely transform how men respond to you. What you will learn today is something that the most magnetic and irresistible women in history have always known intuitively. Cleopatra, Marilyn Monroe, the great seductresses of all eras, they all instinctively understood this truth about the male ego. Prepare yourself, because after this video, you will never see relationships the same way again. Your way of interacting with men will change forever. And that specific man, the one occupying your thoughts, will never be the same after you apply what I'm about to reveal. Before we proceed, I ask you to do something very important. Right now, write the word awaken in the comments. This is not just a simple action, but a declaration of intent to the universe. By writing this word, you affirm that you are ready to reach a new level of understanding about the male psyche. Do it now, write awaken in the comments, and keep watching with full focus, because what comes next is the true gateway to completely transforming your love life. What I'm about to share began over a century ago when Carl Jung, after breaking with his mentor Freud, delved into the depths of the collective unconscious. Jung discovered that beyond the ego, the conscious part of our psyche, there exists a far more complex structure that governs our deepest desires. To truly understand how to affect a man's ego in a way that awakens his love, we must first understand what Jung called the shadow. That part of a man he hides even from himself. The vulnerable part that fears not being enough, not being valued, not being admired. Have you ever noticed how some men may seem so confident on the outside, but carry deep insecurities within? This is the duality of the male psyche that Jung mapped in his studies, and it is exactly within this duality that lies the power to awaken intense passion in a man. Let me share a story. One of my clients, Mariana, was completely in love with a man who seemed not to notice her. She did everything for him, was always available, always attentive, always ready to help. And the more she devoted herself, the less interest he showed. It seemed like a cruel irony of fate, didn't it? When Mariana came to me, desperate and heartbroken, I revealed to her the same secret I'm sharing with you now. I explained that the male brain, according to modern neuroscience, produces higher levels of dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure, and reward when faced with a challenge. When something is too easy to obtain, the male brain simply doesn't value it. But let me be clear, I'm not talking about childish games or manipulation. I'm talking about understanding the true nature of the sacred masculine, that energy Jung identified as the driving force behind men's behavior, this energy that constantly seeks to prove its worth, conquer, and overcome obstacles. The first thing I taught Mariana was about the Jungian concept of the anima, the feminine part that exists within every man. This part profoundly influences how he relates to the women in his life. When a man projects his anima onto a woman, he essentially transforms her into an almost divine figure in his psyche. This is the foundation of obsessive love, of overwhelming, impassion. And how do you make him project his anima onto you? This is where the concept of affecting the ego in a sacred and transformative way comes in. We're not talking about humiliation or cruelty, ever. We're talking about touching that sensitive point that makes him need to prove his worth to himself through you. Jung discovered that when a man is subtly challenged by a woman he admires, when his sense of competence and worth is questioned in a delicate way, something magical happens in his psyche. He enters a state we might call heart hypnosis, a state in which winning the love and admiration of this woman becomes more important than anything else. I will share 3 ancestral secrets about how to activate this state in the male mind. 3 secrets that transformed Mariana's love life and the lives of hundreds of other women who applied this knowledge. The first secret is what I call the soul mirror. Jung spoke about how a man seeks to see his best self reflected in the eyes of the woman he loves. When you show a man that you can see his potential, but that this potential has not yet been fully realized, you create a sacred tension in his soul. He begins to want to prove to you and to himself that he is capable of being that extraordinary man you glimpsed. This doesn't mean criticizing him openly. It's far more subtle and powerful. It's showing that you believe in him deeply, but know he can go further. It's that look that says, I know who you can become, instead of, I accept you exactly as you are. This subtle distinction is absolutely transformative. The second secret is the paradox of presence. Neuroscience shows us that the male brain is wired to pursue what is intermittent, not what is constant. This is why gambling is so addictive. The unpredictable reward creates a state of anticipation that releases far more dopamine than a guaranteed reward. When you are always available, always present, always offering your love unconditionally, the male brain, as unfair as it may seem, starts producing less dopamine in your presence. You become predictable, guaranteed. Unfortunately, what is guaranteed is rarely valued at the deepest level of the primal brain. The paradox of presence teaches that you must be like the moon present, but in phases visible, but mysterious, accessible, but not entirely possessible. This doesn't mean being fake or playing cruel games. It means honoring your own life, your own mysteries, your own sacred journey. When you do this, you affect the man's ego in a way that makes him want to prove he deserves to have you fully. And finally, the third secret, which Jung would call the confrontation with the shadow. Every man has deep fears. He hides the fear of not being respected, of not being enough, of being abandoned. When you, with compassion and wisdom, touch these fears, not to exploit them, but to offer him the opportunity to transcend them, you create a connection that goes far beyond physical attraction or superficial compatibility. This is the deepest kind of wound to the ego, the one that offers healing. It's as if you're saying without words, I see your shadows, your fears, your dark parts, and yet I choose to see the light in you. This is a transformative power that few women know or use. Returning to Mariana's story, when she began applying these 3 secrets, the change was almost immediate. The man who barely noticed her existence started seeking her out constantly. Messages that once took days to be answered were now responded to in minutes. He began wanting to prove his worth to her in every way possible. In less than 3 months, he was completely in love. And most importantly, it wasn't a superficial love or one based on games. It was a deep love, born because Mariana helped him confront his own shadows and grow as a man. This is the power of Jungian psychology applied to love. This is the power of truly understanding the depths of the male soul. This is the power I'm now placing in your hands. Now we reach the heart of this sacred knowledge. I will reveal to you exactly how to apply the 3 secrets I shared with practical examples you can use immediately. This is the most powerful part of this teaching, so pay close attention. To apply the soul mirror, you first need to truly see this man beyond the surface. Jung would say you need to see beyond the persona, the social mask he wears, and glimpse his true self, his unrealized potential. When you're talking, ask questions that lead him to speak about his dreams, not just his accomplishments. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Is far more powerful than what do you do for a living. The first question connects him to his ideal self, to who he truly wants to be. Then, after listening with genuine interest, say something like, "You know what I see in you? I see someone capable of so much more than what you've already achieved. There's something in your eyes when you talk about this that shows the extraordinary man you can become." This kind of reflection is like an arrow straight to the male heart. It's not a criticism, it's a loving challenge. It's showing that you see his unrealized potential, that part of him he may not even fully recognize himself. This affects his ego just enough to awaken his desire to prove his worth to you. A recent neuroscience study showed that when a man feels positively challenged by a woman he admires, his brain releases not only dopamine, but also vasopressin, a neurotransmitter associated with bonding and fidelity in mammals. It's literally the brain chemistry of love and devotion being activated. Remember, the male ego needs challenges. When you offer a challenge wrapped in genuine admiration, you create a perfect storm in his psyche. Now, to apply the paradox of presence, you need to understand that this isn't about games or manipulation. It's about honoring your own life and mystery. Jung spoke about the importance of what he called individuation, the process of becoming truly yourself. In practice, this means that when this man enters your life, he shouldn't find an empty space, waiting to be filled by him. He should find a life already rich and meaningful, in which he wants to earn a place. Stop responding to messages instantly, not as a game, but because you're truly busy living your life. Cultivate mysteries and passions that he doesn't have full access to. Have parts of your life that are yours alone, a spiritual practice, a creative hobby, meaningful friendships. When he asks about these parts of your life, share with enthusiasm, but don't try to convince him to participate or fully understand. Let it remain a mystery to him. Neuroscience shows us that the male brain is particularly activated by unresolved mysteries. They occupy mental space and create obsession. One of my clients, Louisa, a holistic therapist, had a habit of telling the man she was interested in every detail about her day, every client, every insight. I advised her to change this approach. The next time he asked about her day, smile mysteriously and say it was transformative. I had some profound revelations today. Maybe one day I'll tell you more about it. This simple change created a magnetic effect. Suddenly, he was asking more questions, wanting to know more, trying to enter this mysterious part of her life. She wasn't being fake. She was simply choosing to cultivate a sense of sacred mystery around profound aspects of her existence. And this brings us to the third and most powerful secret, the confrontation with the shadow. This is the deepest level of affecting the male ego in a way that awakens obsessive love. Jung believed that every human being has a shadow, those parts of ourselves we repress, deny, or hide. For men, this shadow often includes vulnerability, fear of inadequacy, and terror of not being respected. One of the most powerful ways to activate this level is through what I call mirrored vulnerability. It's when you courageously show your own vulnerability first, creating a safe space for him to confront his. For example, share a fear of yours, an insecurity, something you struggle with, not dramatically or seeking validation, but with a sacred calm. You know, sometimes I fear I'm not enough, but I'm learning to embrace that part of myself too. When you do this, you're essentially saying it's safe to show your humanity with me. You don't need to be perfect or invulnerable. Then, when he eventually shows his own vulnerability, perhaps talking about a failure at work or a fear of rejection, you have the opportunity to affect his ego in the most transformative way possible. Don't immediately console him by saying everything's okay or that he doesn't need to worry.
Instead, look deeply into his eyes and say something like, "Thank you for sharing this with me. I see your struggle, I see your pain, and I also see your strength to face it. That's what I admire about you, not your perfection, but your courage. What you're doing is refusing to feed his ego with empty consolations and instead honoring his battle, his journey. You're essentially affecting his ego by not allowing him to hide behind false strength, while at the same time offering something far more valuable, the recognition of his true strength, the one that comes from facing his shadows. Neuroscience studies show that when we feel truly seen in our vulnerability, our brains release oxytocin, the bonding hormone, the same one released between mother and child or during orgasm. It's a primordial, deep, almost unbreakable bond. For a man, being seen in his deepest truth by a woman he admires creates a bond that goes far beyond physical attraction or compatibility. He literally connects to the feeling of being truly seen and honored by you. One of my clients, Teresa, applied this principle with a man who seemed incapable of commitment. For years, he had maintained superficial relationships, never letting anyone get too close. When Teresa created space for him to confront his shadow, his fear of abandonment, his insecurity about not being enough, something extraordinary happened. He cried in her arms. A man who had never shown vulnerability found a sanctuary for his most hidden parts. 3 months later, he proposed to her, not because she played games or manipulated, but because she offered something no other woman had. Offered a mirror for his complete soul, not just its acceptable parts. This is the true essence of what Jung discovered in his studies of the male psyche. A man doesn't just want to be admired for his strength, that's superficial. At his deepest core, he wants to be seen in his entirety, strength and weakness, light and shadow, and still be considered valuable. When you offer this to a man, you awaken in him not just love or attraction, but an almost sacred devotion. Because you become not just a romantic partner, but a spiritual guide, a priestess who helps him integrate all parts of himself. What I'm sharing with you is much more than a set of techniques. It's a path of transformation for both you and the man you want in your life. It's a knowledge that touches the sacred space between the feminine and the masculine, that ancestral dance. Jung studied deeply. By applying these principles, you're not just affecting the male ego to awaken love. You're offering him an opportunity for growth, integration, and healing. And in this process, you transform as well. Think for a moment, how many times have you dimmed your light so as not to outshine a man? How many times have you hidden your opinions, your desires, your power out of fear of pushing him away? The cruel irony is that by doing so, you probably pushed him away anyway. The paradox Jung discovered is that the masculine truly yearns for the feminine in its full power, not the diminished, softened, diluted feminine, but the fiery, mysterious, challenging feminine. The one that reflects not only his beauty, but also his wisdom, his discernment, his ability to see beyond appearances. When you learn to affect the male ego in the sacred way I've shared with you, you're not just changing how he sees you, you're changing how you see yourself. You're reclaiming your power as a woman. One of my clients, Katerina, was a successful executive who always downplayed her achievements when around the man she was interested in. She feared intimidating him. When she started applying these principles, she not only won the love of this man, she discovered a new way to inhabit her own power. For the first time, she told me, "I feel like I don't have to choose between being powerful and being loved. I can be both." This is the true revolution of this knowledge. It's not just about winning a man, it's about winning back yourself, your essence, your sacred fire. And here's the deepest truth: when you master the art of affecting the male ego in this transformative way, you become irresistible, not because you're playing or manipulating, but because you're operating from a place of authenticity and genuine power. Neuroscience confirms what Jung intuited: men are biologically drawn to women who exude authentic confidence. Studies show that testosterone levels, the hormone associated with male attraction and sexual desire, increase significantly when a man is in the presence of a woman who demonstrates self-respect and sets clear boundaries. This isn't just psychology, it's biology. It's the male body literally responding to your feminine power on a hormonal level. So how do you integrate all this knowledge into your daily life? How do you turn this wisdom into a new reality for yourself? Start with your relationship with yourself. Before applying any of these principles with a man, apply them to your own mirror. Look at yourself and see your unrealized potential. Honor your own mysteries. Confront your own shadows. This inner work is essential because you cannot offer to a man what you don't first offer to yourself. Next, start observing how you interact with the men in your life, not just romantic ones, but friends, colleagues, family. Do you tend to appease, agree when you should challenge, always be available, always pleasing? Start changing these patterns gradually, not to manipulate, but to be more authentic, to honor your truth, your boundaries, your intuition. One of my clients started simply by saying, "I don't agree," when she truly didn't agree, instead of smiling and nodding as she used to. This simple act of authenticity transformed how men responded to her. Suddenly, her opinions were sought, valued, debated with respect. When you're ready to apply these principles specifically with the man you want to attract or win back, start gradually. Don't try to implement everything at once. Subtlety is your ally here. Perhaps start with the paradox of presence. Cultivate areas of your life that are yours alone. When he asks about your day, share with enthusiasm, but leave mysteries. It was a revealing day. I discovered something important about myself. When he asks, "What?" smile and say, "It's a process, I'm living." Maybe one day I'll tell you more, not to tease, but because some journeys are truly personal, sacred, yours alone. Next, try the soul mirror. When he shares an achievement or a goal, don't just praise, challenge lovingly. That's amazing. And you know, what I see in you, I see someone capable of going even further. There's something in you when you talk about this that shows extraordinary potential. And when you feel the trust between you growing, create space for the confrontation with the shadow. Perhaps by first sharing a vulnerability of yours, a struggle, a fear, thus opening a portal for him to show himself fully as well. When, not if, but when he starts showing signs of falling deeply in love with you, remember, this is not a power to be used lightly or selfishly. It's a sacred responsibility. The true purpose of affecting the male ego in this way is not to create dependency or toxic obsession. It's to help him evolve, to integrate all parts of himself, to become a more complete and integrated man. Jung spoke about how true love is not two halves completing each other, but two whole beings recognizing each other. When you apply these principles as I've taught, you're not just winning a man, you're helping him win himself. And in this process, you also set yourself free. You free yourself from the need to dim your light, to hide your power, to be less than you truly are to be loved. You discover that true love doesn't require sacrificing your essence. On the contrary, it flourishes when you are fully in your power, fully in your truth, fully alive. This is the revolution Jung began over a century ago, and which I now place in your hands. A revolution not just in love, but in consciousness. A revolution that begins when you recognize that affecting the male ego, in the deepest and most sacred sense, is actually an act of love for both him and yourself. And so, my dear, you now have the knowledge that few women possess. You have the map to the labyrinth of the male psyche. You have the keys to awaken not just desire or attraction, but devotion, commitment, transformative love. Use this knowledge with wisdom. Use it with compassion. Use it not just to conquer, but to heal. If this knowledge has touched something deep within you, If you feel you finally understood why your past relationships didn't work and what needs to change, share this video with other women who need this wisdom. Every woman who awakens to her true power helps heal not only her own life, but the balance between the masculine and feminine in our world. And don't miss our next video.
You might think the way to win a man's heart is to prove how much you care, how available you are, how deeply invested you can be from day one. But here's the truth. Men are far more drawn to women who know how to detach. Emotionally grounded women who don't beg, chase, or cling. Detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's emotional self-respect. It's the ability to love someone deeply without losing yourself in the process, and it is incredibly attractive. The woman who knows how to detach doesn't wait by the phone. She has a full life. She's got goals, friends, passions, and she doesn't put them on pause just because someone sent her mixed signals. This kind of woman isn't heartless. In fact, she feels deeply, but she doesn't allow feelings to overrule her standards. If a man pulls away, she doesn't panic. She doesn't launch into, what did I do wrong? She steps back, watches the energy shift, and decides whether his actions align with her worth. And that's powerful, because men sense when a woman has the strength to walk away. They feel the quiet power of someone who knows, if this doesn't serve me, I'm gone. That energy changes everything. You become less predictable, less of a sure thing. And in the right man, that triggers desire. Not games, not manipulation, but a natural, healthy urge to pursue. See, when a woman is overly invested too early, texting non-stop, rearranging her life for someone who hasn't earned it, she becomes too easy to access. That's not mystery. That's not value. That's availability without discernment. Detachment, on the other hand, looks like this. You're kind, but you're not desperate. You're responsive, but not always reachable. You're engaged, but you don't need his energy to feel complete. That doesn't make you distant, that makes you secure. And in a world where so many people lead with fear and anxiety, emotional security stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. Men don't fall for women they can control. They fall for women who know what they want and won't settle for less. They fall for the woman who says, I care about you, but I'm not afraid to lose you if this. Think about how rare that energy is. Most people cling, they compromise, they hope. But the woman who detaches, she hopes. But she also lets go if hope isn't matched with effort. She sets the tone. She doesn't ask for more, she observes. And if what she sees doesn't match what she deserves, she doesn't fight harder, she leaves quieter. That's how you train people how to treat you. Not by demanding more, but by walking away when less becomes the standard. Here's what most people get wrong. They confuse detachment with not caring, but the opposite is true. When you truly care about yourself, your peace, your standards, your future, you have to detach from people who bring chaos or confusion. Men admire women who value themselves more than the potential of a relationship, because that's the woman who's in control of her life. That's the woman who doesn't flinch when things don't go her way. She doesn't chase closure, she creates her own. She doesn't beg for clarity, she becomes it. And that, more than anything,
commands attention and respect. The moment a man senses that your life will move forward with or without him is the moment he sees you differently. That's not arrogance, that's emotional maturity. That's someone who chooses peace over pressure. And here's the twist. It's not about making him change. It's about knowing that if he's the right man, he won't need to. He'll step up without pressure, without persuasion, because your presence alone will inspire that from him. Detachment doesn't repel love, it refines it. It filters out the ones who were never serious, never consistent, never ready. So if you've been clinging, hoping, trying to make someone see your value, stop, step back, detach. Not to punish him, but to protect your heart. Because men may like attention, but they respect detachment. That's where the power lies. Not in how much you give, but in how willing you are to walk away when what you're getting isn't enough. Let your detachment teach the lesson your words never could. I love deeply, but I don't chase, I don't beg, I don't wait, I choose. When we talk about emotional independence, we're not talking about shutting people out or pretend you don't care. We're talking about the ability to remain grounded in your own value, regardless of how someone else shows up in your life. And that kind of energy is magnetic to a man. It tells him you are whole with or without him. You're not looking for someone to complete you. You're looking for someone who complements the already full and meaningful life you have. This kind of emotional independence is the opposite of what many people have been taught. You see, a lot of us were raised to believe that the way to get love is to give more, do more, prove more. That if you care enough, if you show just how deeply you feel, someone will choose you. But that mindset backfires. Because when someone feels you are emotionally dependent on them, when your mood, your self-esteem, your confidence rides on how they act toward you, it doesn't bring them closer. It actually pushes them away. A man doesn't want to feel like he's your emotional lifeline. That's not love, that's pressure. Right? That's weight. That's the feeling of being responsible for someone else's happiness. And when a man senses that dynamic, something in him pulls back. Not because he's cold or selfish, but because emotional dependency feels like a trap. It's too much, too soon. And it signals something fragile instead of something strong. But the woman who is emotionally independent, she's attractive on a different level. She knows how to feel without falling apart. She can care without clinging. She shows up fully, but she doesn't collapse if he doesn't show up too. That steadiness, that strength, becomes something he admires. It becomes something he wants to be near, not because she needs him, but because she chooses him. When emotionally dependent, she's not waiting for a man to validate her worth. She already knows who she is. She's not fishing for reassurance. She's not wondering, do you like me? She's asking herself, do I feel good around you? Does this situation align with who I am and what I need? That shift changes everything. It puts her in control of her choices rather than at the mercy of someone else's actions or inconsistency. Men can sense this energy. It's the energy of a woman who isn't afraid to walk away. She's not playing games. She's just not ruled by fear. And when fear isn't running the show, when there's no desperation, no anxiety about being chosen, something remarkable happens. She becomes the chooser. That dynamic turns relationships around. Suddenly, he's the one trying to prove his value. He's the one stepping up, trying to match her standard, not because she asked, but because her energy inspires it. And this isn't about manipulation. It's not about pretending to be independent while secretly obsessing over him. It's about doing the inner work to know that your value doesn't rise and fall based on who stays or who leaves. It's about knowing your peace matters more than forcing a connection. It's about understanding that you're not looking for someone to rescue you from loneliness. You're looking for someone to grow with, to build with, to connect with. From a place of emotional strength, not emotional survival. Men don't fall in love with women who make them feel trapped. They fall in love with women who make them feel free. Free to show up fully, but also free to know that they are wanted, not needed. Emotional independence allows space in a relationship. It lets both people breathe. And in that space, love has room to grow, not from pressure, but from choice. That's why a woman who detaches, who holds her own emotional center, doesn't need to beg, convince, or chase. Her very presence is enough. Her energy says, I want you, but I don't need you to feel whole. That balance, desire without dependency, is what makes her unforgettable. Because emotional independence isn't just about attracting a man, it's about attracting the right man. One who sees your strength, respects your boundaries, and meets you in the middle. Not because he has to, but because he wants to. And that's when love becomes real. Not a performance, not a pursuit, but a mutual recognition of value shared by two whole people who don't complete each other. They enhance each other. Detachment creates desire in a way that nothing else can. When you're fully present but not emotionally tied to the outcome, you become incredibly attractive. There's something deeply magnetic about a woman who can care about a man but doesn't need him to define her worth or her next move. That kind of energy makes a man take notice because it's rare. Most people are so emotionally invested from the very beginning that they hand over all their power without even realizing it. Desire isn't born from constant availability or endless giving. It's born in the space between effort and independence. When a woman is willing to walk away, not in anger, but in calm self-respect, it creates a shift. Suddenly, she's not the woman who will tolerate anything just to stay. She becomes the woman who evaluates what she's getting and acts accordingly. That confidence, that unshakable trust in herself makes a man stop and rethink everything. Men, whether they realize it consciously or not, are attracted to the challenge that comes from a woman who doesn't just fall for the first hint of attention. She observes, she watches how he shows up, and if it's inconsistent, she doesn't try to fix it, she lets him go. That's not indifference, it's strength. It's emotional discipline. And it sends a message more powerful than any conversation ever could. I will not compete for your effort. Either show up or step aside. And it's not about making someone chase you. It's about being so rooted in your own worth that you simply don't overstay in situations that don't feel good. That detachment doesn't push love away, it pulls the right kind of love in. Because when a man knows you're not afraid to lose him, he has to decide, is he going to meet you at your level or risk losing you entirely? That's the kind of clarity that forces a decision. It removes the gray area. And in that space, desire grows. People think that showing someone how much you care is the fastest route to connection. But the truth is, too much, too soon, suffocates the natural development of desire. It replaces mystery with predictability. It removes the space for curiosity to build. When someone knows you'll always be there, regardless of how they show up, there's nothing at stake. There's no urgency, no motivation to value what they haven't yet earned. But the woman who can detach, who can say, I like you, but I won't chase you, changes the dynamic. She brings a sense of value to the connection, and in doing so, she invites him to rise. Not because she said so, but because her absence would be felt. That's the secret. When your presence is no longer taken for granted, your absence becomes powerful. It makes him feel the weight of losing you before he ever truly had you. And that awareness can spark real desire. You're not playing hard to get. You are hard to get for the man who isn't ready to show up. You're not holding back affection to manipulate anyone. You're simply giving affection based on effort, based on alignment. You're not emotionally invested in a fantasy of what could be. You're emotionally grounded in the reality of what is. And that's what makes a man step back and look at you differently. That's when he starts to question how he's showing up. Not because you nagged or begged, but because your energy silently said, this is my standard. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about yourself first. You have the courage to say, I want love, but not at the expense of my dignity. You don't fall into someone's life hoping to be chosen. You walk in knowing you are the prize. And if they don't see it, you leave without drama. That energy, quiet, composed, confident, is unforgettable. A man who truly wants you will feel compelled to come closer when he senses that you are not afraid to step away. He'll want to be the one who gets your attention because you don't give it freely to just anyone. That makes him feel like winning your heart is something worth earning. And that's where real desire is born. Not out of need, but out of admiration. Not out of lack, but out of respect. So when you detach, when you let go of needing someone to choose you, you make space for the right person to want to choose you. And that difference changes everything. One of the most misunderstood dynamics in relationships is the balance between being available and being overly invested. A lot of women are told to be there for a man, to show they care, to be consistent and supportive. And while those are all good things, they can quickly turn into over-munishing if you don't know where the line is. When a woman over-invests early on, when she gives more than she's receiving, when she pours effort into someone who hasn't earned it, it can backfire. Instead of feeling appreciated, she starts feeling invisible. Instead of drawing him closer, she makes him pull away. The reason is simple. When you give too much too soon without matching energy in return, it creates imbalance. Men don't fall in love with someone who chases them. They fall in love with someone who has standards. A woman who is emotionally intelligent enough to be kind, generous, and present, but not self-sacrificing. The key is being emotionally available without needing constant reassurance or pushing for reciprocation. That calm, grounded energy says, I'm here, but I don't need to prove my worth to you. If you want this, show me. When a woman understands this dynamic, she becomes emotionally attractive in a way that stands out. She's not withholding, but she's not constantly chasing either. She responds with warmth when he shows up, but she doesn't try to force connection where there is none. Her availability becomes a mirror. If he brings consistent energy, she reflects it. If he goes quiet, she doesn't overcompensate. She observes and lets the silence speak for itself. Men can feel the difference between a woman who's emotionally desperate and a woman who's emotionally grounded. The grounded woman is willing to build something real, but she's also willing to walk away if her effort isn't matched. That balance creates space for the man to step up, not out of fear, but from a place of genuine desire. He doesn't feel pressured or controlled. He feels inspired to invest because she hasn't already done all the work for him. A man needs to feel his energy matters in a relationship. If she's always initiating, always planning, always accommodating, she removes his opportunity to lead, to contribute, to earn her affection. And whether he admits it or not, most men want to earn it. They want to feel like they're choosing a woman, not just falling into something convenient. A woman who holds back just enough to let him show up, who allows space instead of filling every silence, is giving him room to pursue, and that pursuit is what builds connection. It's easy to mistake over-availability for love, but real love doesn't mean you ignore your needs to be close to someone. It means you show up with openness and respect, but you also pay attention to how your effort is being received. If it's not being matched, you adjust. You don't keep pushing, you pull back and protect your energy. Because the right man won't need to be convinced. He'll sense your presence, your value, and he'll want to meet you there. This is why detachment plays such a big role. When you're emotionally detached from the outcome, you can stay available without becoming needy. You can express interest without begging for attention. You're open to connection, but not dependent on it. That independence gives you the ability to stay grounded when things feel uncertain. You don't spiral, overthink, or chase closure. You wait, you observe, and you act based on what's real, not what you wish it could be. Overinvesting often comes from fear. Fear of losing someone, fear of being alone, fear of missing your chance. But the truth is, anything you have to chase that hard was never really yours. You don't need to prove yourself to be chosen. You need to be yourself and allow space for someone to choose you fully. When you're always the one pushing forward, you don't leave room for the other person to move toward you. When a woman finds that balance, emotionally present but not over-giving, she becomes magnetic. She's a mystery, not because she's playing games, but because she's not pouring herself out for someone who hasn't shown they're worthy. She's available, but selective. She's interested, but she's also at peace if it doesn't work out. That's the energy that keeps a man coming back, not because she needs him, but because she respects herself enough to never need to overextend just to be loved. A woman who knows how to walk away holds a quiet kind of power. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's not even angry. It's composed, confident, and rooted in deep self-respect. That energy is unforgettable to a man because most people stay far longer than they should, trying to fix things, hoping the other person will change, convincing themselves to be patient even when their needs aren't being met. But the woman who can calmly detach and walk away when something doesn't feel right sends a message that's louder than words. I don't chase love, I don't beg for consistency, I don't settle for less than I deserve. This kind of detachment doesn't come from coldness or disinterest, it comes from emotional maturity. It's the result of understanding that love, real love, cannot be forced. That no amount of waiting, explaining, or proving can make someone step up if they're not ready to. And instead of wasting time in limbo, this woman chooses herself. She values her peace over the chaos of chasing someone who is uncertain. That decision, although quiet on the outside, reverberates in a man's mind. Because most people aren't used to being walked away from without a fight. They expect pleading. They expect another chance. They expect emotional dependence. But when a woman simply lets go, and doesn't look back, it creates a moment of clarity. Men notice when a woman detaches with grace. It's not the kind of goodbye that slams doors. It's the kind of goodbye that makes him sit with himself, that makes him question how he showed up, how he lost someone who didn't need him but chose to be there until she didn't. And it's that contrast, that sudden absence of her energy that often wakes him up. Because while she was there, he might have taken her presence for granted. But now that she's gone, he feels the void she used to fill. Not because she begged to be remembered, but because she left with enough dignity to never ask for it. A woman who can walk away isn't playing games. She's simply honoring what she knows in her gut. She doesn't second guess herself endlessly. She listens to her emotions, but she also checks them with logic. If someone's behavior consistently causes pain, confusion, or doubts, she doesn't excuse it. She doesn't cling to potential. She sees it for what it is and moves on. That's what sets her apart. She doesn't operate from fear. She trusts that letting go creates space for something better. She knows that walking away from the wrong energy is the first step toward attracting the right one. This kind of strength is incredibly attractive to a man who's ready for a real relationship, because he sees that she won't stick around just because she's lonely. She won't stay simply because they have history. She needs more than chemistry. She needs consistency. And when a man understands that, he either rises to meet her standard or he removes himself. Either way, she wins, because she refuses to participate in half love. She refuses to negotiate her value for temporary comfort. And here's the truth. Men are deeply affected by women who walk away without malice. When you leave with peace instead of bitterness, you become unforgettable. You didn't lash